Welcome to the podcast that will teach you how to successfully invest in and build steady streams of passive income from the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Veteran real estate investors Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart from Mobile Home Park Academy will personally share with you the valuable lessons they've learned along their journey as mobile home park investors, so that you too can learn how to build massive cash flow and huge profits from this extremely lucrative niche. So without further ado, let's welcome your hosts for today's show, Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart.
Welcome, guys and gals, to the Mobile Home Park Investing Weekly Podcast. We'll provide all the information that you need to know to successfully locate, negotiate, close on, and make huge profits from the lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. I'm your host, Kevin Bupp, and in today's show, we're going to be speaking with real estate investor, entrepreneur, Kirk Bausch. Kirk has had a robust professional career spanning all facets of sales, marketing, operations, and financial planning and analysis. His core competencies are in building brands, generating revenue, streamlining automations, and forecast planning through data analysis. Kirk has been actively investing in real estate for 12 plus years throughout the entire United States, primarily in a buy and hold manner and predominantly in residential single-family properties. Currently, Kirk holds rental properties in 7 different states and is a limited partner in our Sunrise Capital Investors Mobile Home Park Fund. Kirk has researched just about every asset class known to man, and after years of debating, he landed on mobile home parks as his asset of choice and hasn't looked back since. And so, guys, in today's show, we're going to dig deep into Kirk's background and uncover answers to the following questions. First and foremost, why mobile home parks? So why did Kirk choose mobile home parks over all the other types of asset classes in the commercial realm of things, whether it be multifamily, retail, office, self-storage, and the list goes on and on. We're going to learn why he chose mobile home parks. We're going to learn how Kirk's business background has brought value to his real estate endeavors and his real estate activities. We're going to learn how he's finding off-market mobile home park opportunities, even in this very challenging part of the real estate market cycle. We're going to learn about the decision he had to invest as a limited partner in our mobile home park fund and how he went about vetting various sponsors before deciding on us. You learn about the decision he made to launch his very own mobile home park investment fund and how he's structuring that fund. You learn why he feels that mobile home parks offer the best opportunity when compared to all the other different types of real estate asset classes. You learn how he's leveraged partnerships and how these partnerships have helped his business immensely. You learn about the long-distance investing activities and how Kirk manages properties in, I believe, what is 7 different states at this point in time. And I know that's a fear factor of a lot of folks when they're getting started as a real estate investor, whether it be mobile home parks or single-family homes or multifamily or anything else. There's a big fear factor of buying far away, not having it in your own backyard, not having it to where you can drive past it on a daily basis. So he's going to talk about that today as well, and much, much more. And so I'm anxious to get onto the show with Kirk, but before we do, here's a quick word from our show sponsor, Sunrise Capital Investors. Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here with Sunrise Capital Investors. As you are hopefully already well aware if you've been a listener for any period of time, my goal has always been to provide you with as much value as I possibly can through my 2 podcasts, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow and the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. As our audience continues to grow, literally, we've been downloaded millions of times by folks in over 125 countries. I've had thousands of people reach out looking to get involved in our niche. And that's the phenomenal niche of mobile home park investing. For those that don't know, I've been a full-time real estate investor for nearly 20 years now, and I've personally invested in and have owned apartment complexes, various commercial properties, hundreds of single-family rentals, and I've interviewed some of the most successful investors in just about every other asset class, and I've arrived at this one very simple conclusion. Mobile home parks are hands down the best investment I've found to date. Why? They provide investors with the best risk-adjusted returns out of any other real estate sector that I've seen. Investing in real estate can get complicated, and I really want to simplify this process for you. If you're someone who wants to diversify away from the uncertainty of Wall Street and allocate a percentage of your real estate portfolio to mobile home parks, but maybe you don't have the time nor the inclination to personally locate good deals yourself, then our team will do it for you. At Sunrise Capital Investors, our team specializes in the acquisitions and management of undervalued and highly profitable mobile home parks. And we are now providing accredited investors with an opportunity to participate directly alongside our team in our up-and-coming deals. And let me say this, I believe that we are hands down the best in our space at sourcing highly profitable off-market deals. That's really what makes us unique in this niche and as investment managers. As stewards of your capital, we truly are aligned with our investors. We've structured our investment fund so that we as a company are incentivized in the same way the investor is, which is through the performance of the investment itself. In addition, we want to make sure that we not only make money for our investors, but that they understand how it's being made. That's why we provide our accredited partners with a private monthly podcast that walks them through the detailed updates on how their investment is performing. And we're very transparent, providing you with the good, the bad, and the ugly at times. And so if you'd like to learn more about the partnership opportunities with our team here at Sunrise, please go visit sunrisecapitalinvestors.com and click on the investors link to get signed up. It's absolutely free and you'll get placed on the priority list of when new opportunities come along. Also, feel free to call us at 833-CASH-FLOW without the O. Again, that's 833-CASH-FLOW without the O. And one of our investor relations team members will help you schedule an appointment to speak with one of our managing principals. If you have questions, go ahead and schedule a call and let's get on the phone and talk. And with that, guys, I like to leave with one last thought. From the time that I wake up in the morning till the time that I lay my head down the rest of the evening, my number one priority with everything I do, whether it be recording this podcast, working for our investors, helping each of you reach your investment goals, to providing a great experience to each of our residents who reside in our communities, is to add huge amounts of value to everyone that I come in contact with. Now, with that being said, I look forward to the opportunity of bringing value to you through Sunrise and through this podcast. Thank you for your time. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the show. Okay, guys, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest for today's show, Kirk Bausch. Kirk, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to join us here in the show. And just for a sense of geography, where are we calling you at today? Where are you based out of?
I'm in Southern California right now, specifically Irvine, California.
Fantastic. That is like the one other place in the U.S., Kirk, that I would probably consider living other than where I live today in sunny South Florida, I guess the west coast of Southern Florida over in the Tampa area. There's not many other places in the U.S. that I would go, but I surely would go to Southern California because your weather's phenomenal. You don't have mosquitoes, which I dislike very much, and your humidity is practically non-existent. Now, the only complaint I have about Southern California is your damn water is so cold.
It is definitely colder than Florida.
Yeah. You can't go boating in the summertime and expect to jump into 80-degree ocean water. You probably need a wetsuit still, even in the June and July, August months, I would guess.
At least a spring suit, yes.
Yes. So that would be the one drawback for me because I am pretty much a water baby. I love spending a lot of time on the ocean. But anyway, Southern California is a beautiful, beautiful place. And Kirk, we've had the opportunity of knowing each other for about a year and a half now. We met back when you were kind of in your exploratory phase of, trying to make a decision of were you going to put your focus and efforts into multifamily apartment complexes or mobile home parks. And I very vividly remember the conversation I had with you. As I was telling you before we started this recording, I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of my office having our first conversation together, and we probably talked for over an hour. I learned a lot about you and your background and your reasonings for wanting to get involved in this niche. And so maybe just in your own words, I don't want to butcher it, maybe tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself and your background, and more importantly, why you decided to get involved in mobile home parks.
Yeah, wow. That's a broad question, but I'm over here in California, and from the investing side, I started dabbling in real estate investments for all the obvious reasons: for stability, long-term wealth, a solid asset. Everybody needs a roof over their head, so it was a natural attraction for me, and I went down that path. Probably about 15 years ago, started a bunch of research. And with my background, primarily in data analytics and operations, I spent a fair amount of time deep in the weeds on analyzing anything that, can assign a number to. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, I read a bunch of books, I looked at a bunch of market research and said, hey, real estate makes a lot of sense. The numbers pencil out. And at that time, back then, it was really interesting because, home prices were going through the roof. So equity was a big buzzword in play. Cash flow was kind of not really a big topic. It was definitely part of the conversation, but equity was where everyone was penciling out the projections and their wealth. And I fell in that camp and went for it. The numbers made a lot of sense. So I just dove right in and bought a bunch of homes across the US. And that's what kicked me off into real estate investing. Mm-hmm. And then go ahead.
I was going to ask, that was back in pre-recession era, right?
Yes. And so I'm a little bit of an extremist. So when I did the research and the numbers made sense, there was just like no doubt about it. So I didn't just dip my toe in the water and buy one or two. I went in and bought 6 right off the bat. And 2 were in Texas, 1 in Alabama, 1 Georgia, Arizona, and Missouri. And I picked all those states based on a bunch of market research, leaning heavily on someone you may know from the apartment space, Dave Lindahl. Mm-hmm. And he wrote a great book on emerging markets. And I used a lot of that information and then did a lot of my additional research to fine tune the specific MSAs and counties of those states and then made my purchases. And I'll tell you, it was kind of hard to make a mistake in 2004, 5. Mm-hmm. Cash flow was decent. That was a bonus I wasn't banking on. But I can do a property valuation easily 6 months in, and I was like, oh my gosh. And quite honestly, about 1 year in, the appreciation went so high that I mapped out the progression. Like, okay, it's going to continue along this path. And I was like, oh my gosh, in 10 years, I'm going to be holding $15 million in equity. This is my golden ticket. No, that didn't happen.
Yeah. So you did, being that you have a analytic background, you have what a lot of people don't. Like that's a big part that a lot of people fail at miserably, right? Like they go out and they execute very quickly, but they necessarily don't have the fundamental science down behind the markets that they're buying. And so I think that's probably one of the things that somewhat saved you or salvaged those properties that you still, I think a number of them you still own today. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Because a lot of those markets probably rebounded or maybe didn't crash as hard as some of the other markets like here in Florida or, Vegas or Arizona, California. There's lots of markets and states that got hit extremely hard, much harder than others. And I remember you saying, you mentioned some of the states where you own property in, and I think Kentucky was one. I can't think of the other 6 off the top of my head, but there were a number of them that are very much considered linear markets. And so they don't have big ups, they don't have big downs. They kind of stay a little bit more even keeled than some of the other states I mentioned. And so did you find that those properties rebounded fairly quickly?
Yeah, so everybody got bit in 2007, 8. And, I was definitely not immune to that whatsoever. So what happened on my properties were the equity just kind of disappeared, and that was scary in itself. But I felt like I bought right. I felt confident in the numbers. Mm-hmm. What was really painful was I wasn't spending the cash flow. I was actually saving it. But to watch that go bye-bye and then go upside down, that was a roller coaster ride that I wasn't expecting. Yeah. It didn't go down as much as some of my friends in other states that just, took off. But an interesting story there is I started getting pretty upside down. Both my financial advisor and my accountant at that time pleaded with me just to go BK. They were just like, you know what, it's a business decision. Just go BK and we'll hit the reset button and blah, blah, blah. And I struggled with that. And then the following year, I'm upside down more and same thing. And they said, what's holding you back from going BK? You're just like feeding this thing and it's not going anywhere right now. And I said, well, and this is just a personal thing for me. I just said, I signed these documents. One, I ran the numbers and I still feel good about those markets. And I do keep up on those trends over there. So I don't think those markets are going anywhere bad. We see population rebounding, job growth has come back around. And I said, and I can afford the bleeding. So I've committed to these loans and I'm going to hold on to them. And they're like, you're crazy. You're just crazy. So the following year, we saw it kind of stabilize. And they both said, hey, so now we're 3 years in. They both said, you should really still think about this. Like, just BK. And I didn't. So fast forward to last year. I changed my accountant, by the way. But my I changed my financial advisor, but my accountant said, wow, this is interesting. He said, at this rate, you're going to look like a genius in 10 years. So all of them have turned around. Yes. And I'm happy about that because I didn't have to go through that whole BK thing.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story and being vulnerable. I mean, that was a challenging time for so many people, even, I mean, myself included. There was lots of real estate that I had that was upside down, was worth a very large number in 2006. And that changed pretty much in a matter of a few months. Went from being worth $20 million to, essentially negative. I don't know how much the negative number was, but it was a big one. And the biggest pain point for me, and I want to ask you, if this was your biggest pain point, was the negative cash flow. Like the thing is, cash flow can carry you through a down cycle. But if you lose your appreciation and the cash flow, that gets very challenging, especially if you've got a massive holding and you're feeding that beast. And so you mentioned that like the cash flow was negative for a period of time, but it uprighted itself at some point 3 years, 4 years down the road. I think that's an important factor for everyone to really to take home. And, I'm looking at apartment investors out there today. Everyone's buying things at like 5 caps. I mean, they're buying on very compressed cap rates. They're buying on the fundamental basis that, rents are going to continually rise in some markets double digits over the coming years. And at some point, there's a threshold, right? There's a ceiling. And I know that what we experienced, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to get this point out there. And this really plays into why I love mobile home parks. And I think one of the reasons you love mobile home parks, rents can go down. Mm-hmm. Rents can have an impact. Appreciation is one thing. Values are one thing. That obviously can have an impact, and values can go away, but so can rents. I mean, rents can take a major hit, and it sounds like that happened to you. Is that essentially how you went into a negative cash flow state, because some of the markets you were in, the rents took a slight hit for a period of a couple of years where you had to essentially, in order to get these things occupied, you had to drop your rental rates down? Is that what happened, Kirk?
Absolutely. So It just comes back to the basic supply and demand.
Yeah,
and we're oversupplied and less demand due to jobs being vanishing. So that caused a little bit of fire sale. So rents decreased significantly, and that was the most of it. Fortunately, I am proud to say that none. This still surprised me. I had no vacancies, maybe 30 days at the most, but no vacancies. So it confirms the markets were sought out properly, but I did take at least probably 25-30% cut on rent.
Wow, that's a big one.
Hurt.
Yeah.
And the thing that was scary was, everyone's buying aggressively at that time. You fog a mirror, you get a loan.
Yeah.
So I'm getting these loans at interest only, and all of a sudden I'm realizing that they have a 10-year due, and I'm like, oh no. And at 2009, I got laid off from my corporate job. Oh boy. So I was like, that's why my financial advisor and CPA were saying, just file BK. But, it was like a perfect storm of stress. And fortunately, my wife was like, we got this. We're going to pull it off. And, when she gets determined, together we get to conquer anything. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, I feel like your wife is your partner in crime. I know you have a business partner as well. And one thing I forgot to mention is, number one, Kirk and I, we realized pretty quickly that we share an affinity for road cycling. That's one of my big hobbies. That is one of Kirk's hobbies. But his wife, and you're going to correct me if I butcher this, I believe she was a 2012 Olympic silver medalist. Is that the London Games? Is that what it was? You are correct. I do remember that part of the conversation, so I think that's pretty cool. And obviously having a Olympic athlete as a wife, I'm sure she keeps you in check and keeps pushing really, really hard, right? She's probably a hard charger, as is my wife. Yes. Well, fantastic. So talk to me about some of the underlying fundamentals that really attracted you to the mobile home park space, because I know that when I first spoke with you, Kirk, you were very torn. I mean, you were very much in a decision point in your life where you're like, I've spent a lot of time researching multifamily apartments, and I've spent a good bit of time researching mobile home parks, and I need to know which way I want to go. And you ultimately made the decision to focus on mobile home parks. Give me some of maybe the top 3 or 4 reasons why mobile home parks. Like, what really made you make that final decision? Yeah, in a nutshell, it just makes a lot of sense. That's what it came down to. And yeah, you're right. Your memory is spot on. So I'm out, the single families hurt me. That came back around. I started getting more comfortable with investing. And then oddly enough, I was on a bike ride and just crunching numbers in my head. And I was thinking, I've saved up some cash. Should I start buying some more homes? And then I was in my head, I remember I was doing a mountain bike ride this evening. And I was like, if I did an apartment building based on these cap rates and this, I was like, oh my gosh, I would cash flow so much better. Hey, wait a minute. And then the wheel started turning. And that was about probably 2.5 years ago. And then I just dove into research like I do. And I narrowed down that my goal is to build cash flow. I definitely want to build the equity side, but cash flow is paramount. So with that in mind, I started looking at the various asset classes. And multifamily was an easy one because it just made sense. Everyone needs a place to live. So then, you break that down. Okay, what constitutes multifamily? And when I looked at apartment buildings and the types of apartment buildings and then compared those to mobile home parks, pretty much a night and day difference when you really put those side by side. But when you just look at all the economics to the mobile home park compared to an apartment building, to my earlier phrase, it just made a lot of sense. Supply and demand, it just makes sense there. Owning land makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
So I like that part too. But when I came to that realization that mobile home parks are an asset class that, people still need, we definitely have an affordable housing problem, and that population is not decreasing. If anything, it's increasing, and it's only going to increase more with, limited supply on affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one for me because, it does break my heart when I see people out there that can't afford, a single bedroom apartment. And there's plenty of them in the US, and there's a lot of those jobs that are being fed. So there's a stable base that lives there.
Yeah. And, here's a unique thing about this asset class is that it's really evolved over time. I mean, Kirk, I don't know if you've been to any of the home shows or, if you've toured any of the, most recent models that are rolling off the assembly lines, but these things look like normal homes. I mean, there's some really nice higher end finishes. They're still mobile, but, really at the end of the day, they're very much, you could kind of almost classify them as a modular home in a certain sense. Modular home is a multi-section home that gets put together on site. Mobile homes, somewhat the same thing. Especially like a double wide or a triple wide. But in any event, the cool thing about the space is, number one, you don't have to live in an old metal box, right? A lot of people have that image ingrained in their brain of what a mobile home or what a trailer is, right? And it's an old metal box with a rusty roof and, small bedrooms and stinks of mildew, right?
Yes.
They're out there, right? Just like there's older rundown homes or apartment complexes that are out there, right? Same thing. But it doesn't have to be that way. But here's the real cool thing is that you can live in a modern home that has all the amenities of a single family stick-built home. But there is no cheaper place that you can truly live, and I'm speaking to lot rent in a mobile home park. There's take any city in the U.S., any market, any MSA, and there's no cheaper place in that particular market that you can live as far as on a monthly rental basis, meaning lot rent, compared to like apartment rent or, the mortgage on a single family home. There's no cheaper place you can live than in a mobile home park or manufactured housing community. And I always like to say this, in most part, in all of our parks, pick any one of the parks that we currently own today, there is no cheaper place they can live. And so what it means to those that live to own their home, that own their actual trailers in those parks, is they figure out a way, one way or another, how to come up with that $250, $300 a month, because there's nowhere else they can take their family for that kind of monthly payment and actually have a safe, clean, and quiet place to raise their family. And so I like that. It leaves us a lot of options in the grand scheme of things for those that maybe have dual household incomes, that maybe one loses their job. Maybe they're living in a higher end apartment and they need to downgrade, or they want to own a home. They're living in a C-class apartment complex. They want to own a home. They surely can't afford a stick-built home. We have so many options to fit so many different types of folks out there. And And the options a lot of times in our communities are nicer than what they're actually living in today. And so it's a very exciting business model. There's a big barrier to entry because they're not building them anymore. And so we've got that going for us, which I love. That's actually probably one of the favorite things about this business. It's a supply demand factor, but from a standpoint of the supply is limited. In fact, it's the only real estate asset class that has a diminishing supply, which means there's more that are being torn down or redeveloped or being shut down than there are being built on an annual basis, which is it's so weird and unique because it doesn't exist in any other type of real estate. So anyway, I don't want to go on a rant here because I could go on and on, Kirk, and I'm sure that you'll basically echo all these opinions about why this is such a great business. And so anyway, there's a lot of opportunity here. And that kind of leads me into the next question I wanted to ask you. And I know that you and your partner, Katrina, have been having some great success with finding good opportunities and, more importantly, off-market opportunities, which I think is really the name of the game in today's real estate cycle. I mean, where we're at, and again, doesn't matter if you're buying mobile home parks or apartment complexes or any other type of real estate. If it goes out in the market and it's listed by a broker, everyone's chasing yield. And so there's always going to be somebody that's willing to pay more than you, and always somebody willing to take less of a return on their money than you are. And that means that the price gets pushed up. And so off market's the way to go. That means that you're dealing directly with the owner, in most cases dealing directly with the owner, and you're not in a bidding war. So you and your partner have gotten really good at this strategy and this technique. Can you speak a little bit to that? And you don't have to go too much in depth, but just a general overview of what's working for you guys. I mean, how are you able to generate such great deal flow?
Yeah. So first, you mentioned my partner, Katrina. So great partner. We actually met at your boot camp. We met before that in the academy, but we got to know each other really well at the boot camp a year ago in Florida. And I was really attracted to the fact that she was a go-getter, and you could just tell she is determined to get this done and it's going to be successful. Yeah. And I have that same sentiment. And I was like, she's over there on the East Coast doing what I'm doing on the West Coast. If we combine forces, that synergistic effort would multiply. So anyways, we got together and we've worked really closely in building our processes. And so we followed all of the academy stuff, and we put our process in place from an operational standpoint to build campaigns. So we sourced all the owners as instructed, built our database, and then dropped them into a marketing campaign to reach directly to the various owners across the U.S. And it's been a breath of fresh air to see the campaigns actually work. I mean, it's always mysterious. Okay, we learned how to do this and we're putting all this time and energy into building this database. And then when we launch it, is it really going to reap anything? Yeah. Are the addresses correct? Are the phone numbers accurate? I don't know. I hope so. I spent a lot of time doing this. And sure enough, the phone was ringing. And we were having plenty of conversations. I mean, we have a lot of conversations. And it's really nice to, in comparing a broker conversation with a seller conversation, night and day. The more times than not, these sellers are definitely a little bit more mature in age, let's say, mm-hmm. And they are very proud of what they've built. And I thought our conversations would be like maybe 30, 40 minutes. These guys will spend hours on the phone. Yeah. And it's great because I get to learn a lot from them, and I get to hear what they've done, and you just really get to uncover a lot and build that relationship with them, and hope that turns into a deal sometime in the future. Maybe not today, but in the future it should. Mm-hmm. But we do have a decent pipeline of conversations going on because we have a very consistent marketing campaign that goes out, mail and phone, and we reach out on a regular basis. I mean, Katrina does not let the gas off. We just wrapped up this one 2 weeks ago, and she was hitting me over the weekend like, is the next database ready for the launch of campaign 5? And it's like, oh boy, here we go again. It's like, no rest. So that's how we're going after it.
Okay. Well, I remember the first time you guys did direct mail campaign, and you followed it up with a cold calling initiative as well. And I remember you guys literally had leads and you can manage at anyone. I mean, like literally it's taking you days to return calls because like you had so many phone calls coming in because you didn't know what to expect. I mean,
Yeah.
you knew what we told you to expect, but like, just like you had said, like, is it going to work? Is it going to work like they said it's going to work? And, you know, how's this going to go? And your response rate was through the roof. And that's exciting. I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, we learned a lot. We've learned a lot through each of the campaigns. We're still like, I wouldn't say we're masters. I think we have done a really decent job of creating deal flow, like incoming conversations. And now we're fine tuning those quick evaluations, returning the calls, quick evaluations, and then deciding quickly and efficiently to pass or play. Because what we were doing the last few campaigns, we get a little hung up, they drag out, and, you know, just by that alone, like deals would just kind of fall through here and there. But we're tightening that up. And then to that point, so we've actually did some tweaks on some of our marketing stuff this last campaign. And I think we sent out, I know we sent out like 3,100
wow.
mailers. And we are knee deep. I think today we're probably about 175 responses and really healthy. I mean, we're analyzing probably 15 deals right now. So
yeah, that's fantastic. So deal flow has not been an issue. And again, the best part is a majority. Now, I'm going to say a majority of these leads that are coming in aren't listed and they're not currently in negotiation with other buyers. Now, I know there's probably some that are, some people that are, that are responding to your letter that you're cold calling that maybe are already in negotiations with someone else, maybe actually do have it listed with a broker, but that's definitely not the majority. The majority are just folks that are responding to your letter that don't have it technically for sale today, and which lends an opportunity to get into a one-on-one negotiation directly with an owner without a bunch of other people butting in, cropping that price up artificially.
Correct.
Yeah, which is exciting. So that and any of these strategies really are applicable to any other type of real estate. So that's really the exciting thing. Once you learn how to kind of control your own destiny and building this database and direct marketing to owners. If you ever want to change gears or switch direction and go into, let's say, apartments, you want to go into apartments in a couple of years, you can literally apply the same techniques and it works the same way. So it's a powerful tool and a powerful technique to understand and to become an expert at. And you guys have. So kudos to you. In fact, that's actually why it kind of leads me to my next thing. You guys have actually finally made a decision to launch your own mobile home park investment fund. And primarily it's due to the amount of deals you guys have coming through the door, right? I mean, like what we've done here. Like we launched a fund last year. We've got another one that we just rolled out. And we're having great success. And, there's a lot of people out there who do like deal specific syndications, that's okay for some. But the deal flow that we have definitely warrants more of a collective fund structure. And I know that you guys are going that route as well because you're very confident in your ability to source high quality off market deals. And so I want to talk a little bit about, the actual, the mechanics of a fund. I mentioned that there's deal specific. That's probably the more common route that a lot of folks go, that a lot of people that are listening are kind of used to, or if they see that are being promoted. It's just where there's capital being raised for one specific deal. Whereas in a fund structure, the money's being raised for a period of time, predetermined period of time, sometimes 12 months, sometimes up to 24 months. And it's for it's multiple deals, multiple mobile home parks. And so the real important thing I want to cover here, Kirk, which I think it's important for all the listeners to understand, and I know this applies to your fund that you're launching as well as to our fund that we currently have live here today. Too often, I see park operators, they raise capital for a project, for a fund, and they immediately promise the repayment of capital to their investors, which in turn means that in a lot of cases, what they're actually doing is paying the investors distributions from the investor's own capital source and not necessarily from the cash flow of the asset itself. And it's a big no-no, and it's a practice that you should really steer clear of. And so when you're out there looking and vetting at sponsors to get involved with, whether it's Sunrise or whether it's Kirk's company or any of the other operators that are out there, be sure to understand exactly how they're operating their fund structure, okay? If you run across an operator who specializes in value-add turnaround parks like we do and like Kirk and Katrina do, and they promise you to immediately start paying out preferred returns and distributions from day one, just be very wary. And Kirk, do you have any feedback on that? I mean, what are your thoughts on that sentiment? Because there's lots of people everyone wants to be an investor today. I feel like it's kind of like 2000. You probably remember this. You probably have a little bit of deja vu. I know I do. In 2006, even like my waiter and waitress and bartender or whatever, like everyone was a real estate investor, right? And everyone's out there doing deals and raising capital. And some people are doing it in a very irresponsible manner. So anyway, do you have any thoughts on regarding the fund structure and distribution payments and preferred returns and such? And
yeah, well, to start with, we were going at this with a lot of activity from the marketing campaign. So a lot of these deals started looking a lot bigger than we can take down. So we had a choice. Are we going to, try to partner up with people like you? Are we going to syndicate, deal specific, or are we going to create a fund? Which fund was very foreign, other than the fact that I've been involved with yours. So as we kind of shop more and had more conversations with sellers, it became evident that if we keep the gas on as we are now, we will be able to shop for bigger size properties. And that's the goal, not to have a lot of small, like 40 and 50 lots. We want to get into some bigger size ones. For us, if we could get into a few 70, 80, 100, that would be fantastic. Mm-hmm. But that just pushes that price range right up out a little bit further than we can handle from our pocketbook standpoint. So it only makes sense. Okay, so then we looked at a syndication, and then for us, when we run the numbers, that would have to be a really special, specific deal. So then the fund made a lot of sense to kind of form a, let's call it, big piggy bank to tap into to acquire a portfolio of properties. Mm-hmm. And out of the gate, it's like, oh yeah, let's run the numbers. We'll our fund is basically a $3 million target with a 250 floor. Mm-hmm. And what we're saying is, okay, we're going to go get this fund. And on the onset, our initial discussions were just as you are warning right here. We're like, okay, we're going to pay an 8% preferred, and I try to put myself in the investor's shoes, and I want to see it hit my pocketbook immediately. And then I will say, it wasn't like we were the smart guys that figured anything out. You guys definitely helped us kind of look at it from a different lens and think about the period, the payback period, mm-hmm. Pushing that out to a window. And actually, we ran the numbers, and for us, we're pushing that thing out to 12 months. So at 12 months, we start payments, but you will recoup all your preferred starts right away when the money hits the bank.
Yeah. So the preferred it starts accruing, correct?
Yes, starts accruing, and then payment one for that person starts 12 months out.
Yeah.
Our fund launch.
And so the important thing to understand, the reason behind that is that you're in a buying period of time where you're actually acquiring properties throughout that 12-month span. And in addition to that is a lot of the properties we buy are what we classify as value-add turnaround. Some are less stabilized than others. So some need a little bit more time. One might take 3 or 4 months to get stabilized. The other one might take an entire year to get stabilized. And so the last thing you want to do while you're getting those deals stabilized and while you're in buying mode is to be paying back, actually paying out preferred returns rather than just accruing it, and also any distributions from cash flow, because really it's an irresponsible thing to do, because essentially what you'd be doing is paying back that preferred return or the distributions with investors' own capital. Again, we're really good at finding these off-market deals, things that have a lot of meat on the bone, and a lot of times they don't take too terribly long to turn around. But in most situations, they take anywhere between I'd say 4 months on the short side to as long as 12 months to get them fully stabilized and operating as they should. And so I don't want to.
I think that's a great way to put it, because when we're sourcing these off-market deals, they do have a little bit of hair on them because they need some turnaround. And just like you mentioned, that takes some time. So when an investor really understands that, they're like, okay, now that makes sense. And I'll see that bigger return on the end. We're not buying 5 caps. These things are, 9, 10 caps is what we're shooting for.
Yeah, us too. Yeah, and it's even better when, we might go in at an aggressive cap rate. Like there's been a couple of circumstances where we purchased at like a 6 cap, and And someone say, well, you guys are crazy. What do you do? Okay, it's okay. We're buying at 6 cap today, but the rents are 60% below market, right?
Well, there's a story there, right?
Yeah, right. And so it's a pretty common story. And, effectively in 12 months, it will be, a 9 cap or a 9.5 cap. And we'll still have a lot of room to run as well. And so that's where the opportunity lies in this space. Lots of parks out there, lots of parks that have below market rents, that have operational expenses that are higher than what they should be, that could be run a lot more efficiently. And so just lots of opportunity in this space. Again, Kirk even mentioned like aging owners. I don't think you said it that way. I forget how you worded it, but there's an aging demographic of owners that exist in this space that they're basically getting tired, and they're getting to an age to where they might have operated this property themselves for 20, 30, 40 years, and now it's that time to consider selling. And so lots of different reasons why there's such a great opportunity to get into this niche today, whether you're an active investor or even want to be a passive investor and invest alongside a group with a track record like us or like Kirk's team. And that kind of leads me to the question of Kirk, what actually pushed you to become also a limited partner in our fund? I mean, I know that you had already made the decision to invest yourself. I mean, to actually get out there and buy parks. But then at the same time, simultaneously, you decided to also make an investment in our fund as a limited partner. Can you give me an idea of that decision process?
Yeah, great question. So my portfolio in my 401k was not doing anything. So I started looking at the returns that mobile home parks were delivering, especially with the thought that I'm diving into this space, and coupled with the fact that eventually I want to scale and I want to learn about how a fund works, whether that be through a fund like I did with you guys or a syndication model. And I shopped around for plenty, and it just, again, mobile home parks made sense. And then when you and I spoke on the phone, Kevin, that instant camaraderie was there. So I was like, okay, this makes sense too. So primarily it was to get a good return, a solid, stable return. And I think we're achieving that. And then 2, to also learn a little bit more about the space, because I personally want to be a part of that space.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. I want to switch gears a little bit, Kirk, and I know we're running out of time, and I want to talk a little bit about long distance investing. And I think that's a big fear factor that a lot of new investors, whether it be mobile home parks or any other type of real estate they have, and you've got a lot of experience with it. All the properties that you own today, other than maybe your primary residence that you live in, they're out of state and they're far away.
Yeah,
they're really far away. And I know a lot of the mobile home parks that you guys are working are not in California. I don't think any are. So they're all out of state. And so talk to me a little bit about how you got, I mean, this might go back in time, 10 or 11 years when you started buying your first pieces of investment real estate, how you got comfortable with the idea of buying in a different markets that are hundreds or thousands of miles away.
Yeah. So fortunately, we started with the research of the market, but then when you make the investment, I went to plenty of real estate meetups and talked to several different investors. I would say most of them at that time were very skittish on out-of-state ownership. But I noticed that the successful investors had a common theme. They had solid property managers in place. Mm-hmm. And they pressed upon me that if you're going to invest out of state, you better have a good property manager. So I spent a fair amount of time vetting out property managers. And to this day, I believe, every one of them are the original. So it's fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's been a long time. So I typically, my cadence of conversation with them are, we have like quarterly check-ins at minimum. When I first got into the game, I was on the phone with them every month, and I'm sure it drove them bananas. But now we're on a pretty good cadence, very comfortable with each other. Now I have a really good understanding of how that works, how the property manager represents me and the property and takes care of my property. They're basically my team. They're my extension. I'm going to apply that same type of principle as we go into mobile home parks. And, there's a little bit of a twist there because ideally I want the on-site manager to be that extension of me. Mm-hmm. I also hope that there's an opportunity to have a cluster of properties in a similar MSA where we can have like a regional property manager oversee maybe all of them, or be that middleman between myself and the direct boots on the ground managers.
Yep.
So now it's not even a question of comfort. Property managers, once you kind of train them up, get them on your program and how to run it, that communication keeps everything clear. A few visits a year make it pretty simple. I make it sound super easy, but it's a little bit more than that. But property managers would be the key for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the beautiful thing about, at least to me, the beautiful thing about owning real estate that's far away, you've got to get very resourceful and with your systems and processes, right? I mean, you can't expect that you're going to show up there and fix a problem or solve a challenge that's happening at that point in time. And in fact, I like to say that there's nothing that a property owner typically would be able to do to make any situation better, right? Meaning, like, if you've got a fire at one of your properties, or someone just got shot, or someone got robbed, anything bad, right? A catastrophic event, hurricane came through. I mean, what are you going to do that the authorities wouldn't be able to do, or that the fire department wouldn't be able to do? Like, is your presence going to be helpful there in that situation, right? Probably not. And so it forces you to be resourceful and rely on others. It also forces you to rely on technology to get a digital eye of what's happening there, whether it be by means of security cameras, or we arm each one of our property managers with a GoPro camera and require that they do monthly drive-throughs at the properties. And if we feel like that's not adequate, we'll go hire someone on Craigslist or through Facebook and actually have them go do drive-throughs. Everyone's got a smartphone nowadays, right? And so it's pretty easy to get anyone that has a car and a smartphone to go take a video and take pictures of your community so that you can get a eye on your prize. And so I like that. I like owning things far away because I don't feel obligated to go to them. We visit on a typically like quarterly basis, so we see our properties, but we're not literally going to them on a daily or weekly basis. Which again, there'd be no benefit of us doing that. In fact, it actually somewhat prohibits the on-site manager from doing their job effectively if they've got Big Brother always overlooking their shoulder, right, and showing up there on site on a daily basis. So yeah. In any event, well, Kirk, I know we're running out of time, and I want to be respectful of your time. But if I've got one last question I want to ask of you, or if you had any words of wisdom or advice that you could leave with any of the new aspiring park investors that are listening to the show that are just dying to jump into this space, what would that advice be?
Real simple. One, get educated, because you need to know what you're getting into, and you can speed it up by, getting some good mentorship and eliminate a lot of mistakes that are commonly made that cost a lot of money. So you're going to pay for it one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So just get the education. The second part, and I think this is the one that makes or breaks a successful real estate investor, is sticking to it. Yeah. So like we said early on, when I started going down the path of multifamily and trying to figure it out, I quickly fell into this shiny syndrome, shiny object syndrome.
We all have. Don't feel bad.
I mean, everything looks good. And when I put my mind to mobile home parks, I'm not distracted. So when someone brings up whatever, storage or a land play, it's like, that's just noise. It's behind me. I'm very focused. And I think that will play well with anyone that wants to get into the space. So education, sticking to it, and staying focused.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And for those that want to reach out to you, Kirk, that want to learn more about your company, the offering that you have available, how do they reach you?
Yeah, so I'll give you my email address, and we have a little website too. So
okay. A little website or a big website?
It's just a website.
Okay.
So my email address is MHP, like mobile home park, duo, DUO, @gmail.com. And then, so it's for Katrina and I. Mm-hmm. We also have Matt that's involved, so we have this email before him, but he's part of our deal. And then there's our website, which is mhp-team.com.
Okay.
You can find information about us, who we are, what we've done, and where we're going.
Well, Kirk, man, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on this call. And it's always a pleasure speaking with you and talking with you and getting updates from you and what's going on in your business. And I look forward to following your success, my friend. Seriously, you guys are kicking butt. Just keep on doing what you're doing. And it's all about, as you mentioned, it's all about staying consistent, right? And being persistent with whatever path you choose. And you've chosen mobile home parks. We've chosen mobile home parks. But again, if you're listening to this and you haven't, maybe you're at the point where Kirk was a year and a half ago, where you're kind of wavering between, maybe another type of real estate or mobile home parks. Whatever decision you make, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to say that I personally think mobile home parks are better than anything else, but that's just my opinion, right? I'm entitled to my opinion. But whatever it is you choose, stick with it.
Yes.
Put blinders on, forget about the shiny objects that are going to, try to create interruption in your life, because they're always there. They don't go away. You just got to learn to deal with them. And whatever you choose, if you focus on it long enough and be persistent, you can make a ton of money, right? I mean, you can really use it as the vehicle to live the life of your dreams. So, Kirk, with that, my friend, that's all I have. I really appreciate you joining us on today's show. And guys, real quick, before we say goodbye, I want to remind you quickly of the free gift that we offer to all the listeners who take the time to leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. We'll give you the exact cold call script that we use in our very own business. And as Kirk and I talked about today, they use cold calling in their business. We use it in ours. It's very effective, as is direct mail. But cold calling is a big part of our business. If you want the exact script that we use when we call on sellers, then all you need to do is basically go to iTunes, leave a review, and then send us an email to gift@mobilehomeparkacademy.com and just tell us who you are, what screen name that you use to leave your review, and we'll go ahead and send that cold call script to you right away. Also, be sure to stop by Mobile Home Park Academy website at mobilehomeparkacademy.com. You can listen to all the previous podcast shows. I think we've got over 90 now there, so probably equivalent of 80 plus hours worth of content. So if you're looking to get into this business, looking to get started, that's a good place to start, is go there and consume all the information you possibly can. We got lots of granular content about our business model, how we build that database, how we do direct mail, basically nuts to bolts of how we run our business and how we buy mobile home parks. You can also download a free copy of our popular ebook, 21 Biggest Mistakes Investors Make When Purchasing Their First Mobile Home Park and How to Avoid Them. Definitely a required read. It's free. What do you have to lose other than money, right? And so go get the book. It's free. It'll save you some from making some big possible mistakes in your first park. And that's it, guys. So Kirk, thank you again, my friend. It's been a pleasure, and I'll look forward to keeping in touch with you, okay?
I got to say thank you to you and Charles for everything and all the support. I appreciate it.
Congratulations for taking the necessary steps to achieving massive success through the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Be sure to visit our website, mobilehomeparkacademy.com, to download your free digital ebook version of the 21 biggest mistakes investors make when buying their first mobile home park and how you can avoid them. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our free monthly mobile home park investing newsletter, which is jammed full of valuable tips, tricks, and strategies to help you accelerate your path to success as a mobile home park investor. More information about this podcast and its hosts can be found by visiting mobilehomeparkacademy.com.